They aren't who you think they are. And I'm not talking about a handful of fake people in your circle. I'm talking about the entire system. Since the day you were born, you were taught to wear masks and believe in illusions. It happened at school, at home, even in religion. Be polite. Don't cry in public. Don't say what you think. You grew up conditioned to hide your essence and accepted living in a society where lying is the social contract. Now comes the part nobody dares to say. The world doesn't survive without disguises. The people you admire, the ones who seem happy, prosperous, enlightened, often aren't more than characters. And you know what's worse? Maybe you became one of them. You look in the mirror and believe the story you told yourself, but the body doesn't lie. It detects incoherence before the mind. That's why you feel that emptiness, that unexplainable anguish, that sense that something is off, even when everything seems right. And here's the dark revelation. It's not paranoia, it's awakening. If you have the courage to see beyond the masks, you'll discover what few people know. How to use this awareness to transform your spiritual life, attract prosperity, unblock your energy, and finally access the abundance that has always been your birthright. But beware, after hearing this, you'll never look at people or at yourself the same way again. From an early age, when we're still taking our first steps in the world, we're introduced to an invisible contract that no one explains but everyone seems to sign without question. The one that treats lying as the silent rule of living together. It's not just about making up stories or hiding explicit truths, but about the social mask handed to a child before they even understand what sincerity is. We grow up hearing phrases like, "Don't say that, it's rude. Don't cry here, people are watching. Be polite, even if you don't want to." Little by little, the mind learns that being accepted is far more important than being truthful. That's the invisible error many carry for a lifetime, believing that sincerity equals rejection, and that wearing a mask is the only path to acceptance. The curious thing is that although the rational mind struggles to sustain this daily theater, the body never lies. It's the first to expose incoherences. The heart races when you say, "It's fine," while storms rage inside. Your breath shortens when you must smile at someone who hurts you. Your skin prickles when a presence doesn't convey inner peace, even if their words are sweet. The body detects incoherence before the mind does, like a silent radar of spiritual energy alerting us to a lack of harmony. That's where spiritual awakening comes in, realizing it's not paranoia to distrust certain looks, nor an overreaction to feel something's wrong, even when logic insists on silence. Intuition, sustained by balanced chakras and connection with the universe, is the pure language that precedes any rationalization. It's interesting to note that in some situations, the mask protects more than it destroys. Imagine, for instance, someone carrying immense pain, a wound not yet healed. Being completely vulnerable in every environment could expose this person to more injury than they already bear. In such cases, the mask is like temporary armor, allowing the inner healing journey to unfold quietly until there's enough strength to open up. It's counterintuitive, but sometimes the disguise is a blessing, a co-creation resource the mind uses to maintain balance until the moment of genuine spiritual awakening arrives. Wisdom isn't in ripping off every mask at once, but in discerning when they're protecting us and when they're imprisoning us. And isn't it curious that even in this play of roles, we relentlessly seek the hope of being loved for who we truly are? Humans long for the abundance of an authentic spiritual life, for the prosperity that comes from harmony between what is felt and what is shown. But society keeps teaching that showing fragility is weakness. So we keep collecting characters, one at work, another at home, another on social media. How many of us have felt tired, not from the weight of tasks, but from the daily effort of sustaining so many versions of ourselves? The inner wealth we seek only blooms when we stop fighting the current of life and begin cultivating gratitude for the simple act of existing with authenticity. This leads us to reflect on how the law of attraction operates in silence. We don't attract what we pretend to be. We attract what vibrates in our real energy. A person can repeat prosperity affirmations, but if deep down they feel scarcity, the universe responds to that hidden vibration. Likewise, someone can post smiling photos online, but if they carry deep sadness inside, no filter can hide the spiritual energy emanating from them. True co-creation happens when the success mindset aligns with coherence between mind, body, and spirit. That's when manifestation stops being mere theory and becomes concrete experience. And if you pay attention, there are always signs, little alerts indicating when we're far from our life purpose. A conversation that leaves a bitter aftertaste, a relationship that drains energy, an opportunity that looks brilliant but robs you of sleep instead of bringing peace. These signs are invitations to spiritual self-knowledge, to look beyond the surface and perceive that the journey of enlightenment isn't about never wearing masks, but about learning to hear when they no longer make sense. After all, life unfolds in cycles. In some, we need protection. In others, release. True awakening is recognizing which cycle you're in. And when you allow this expansion of consciousness, something magical happens. Prosperity begins to flow, not because you learned a secret trick, but because there is finally harmony between what you feel, think, and do. Financial unblocking, for example, often isn't about external strategies alone, but about releasing hidden beliefs inherited in childhood, when we learned that money was scarce or that abundance was a privilege for a few. Do you see how masks aren't only in social interactions, but also in the narratives we internalize about prosperity, success, and spirituality? And this is where a powerful question arises, opening the way to the next step in this reflection. If we all wear masks to some degree, how can we learn to distinguish the ones that protect us from the ones that distance us from our true self? To distinguish the masks that protect us from those that pull us away from our essence, we need a deep dive into spiritual self-knowledge. It's not just looking in the mirror and asking, "Who am I?" It's noticing the layers built over a lifetime. Every word heard in childhood, every disapproving look, every silence in the face of a genuine emotion molded the characters we carry today without realizing it. Spiritual awakening begins when we stop accepting these masks as natural and start questioning, is this version of me born of my truth or of others' expectations? This simple exercise creates space for a transformation that goes beyond the mind, touching the chakras, realigning spiritual energy, and bringing back lost balance. But here's an intriguing detail. Many people confuse taking off the mask with exposing all their wounds at once. That isn't enlightenment. It's raw exposure that can lead to new trauma. Imagine someone who, after years of hiding insecurities, decides to reveal everything in a hostile environment. Instead of healing, this attitude generates more pain. The true journey of liberation isn't made of sudden leaps, but of small conscious steps. It's like a guided meditation. You don't drop into a deep state instantly. You relax, release tension, and allow body and mind to align until you reach inner peace. Masks work the same way. Each should be removed with compassion at the right time, respecting the soul's rhythm. When we begin to live more aligned, we notice how the world reacts differently. People who were attracted to the masked version naturally drift away because they no longer vibrate at the same frequency. At the same time, new connections arise, more authentic, more coherent, bringing harmony and hope. This is where the law of attraction shows its essence. It's not enough to desire prosperity, abundance, or true love. You must vibrate at the corresponding frequency. That doesn't mean faking optimism, but cultivating true gratitude, the kind born from recognizing the blessings already present in your life. When you give thanks for what you have, even if it seems small, you create energetic space to receive more. and subtly the universe starts conspiring. Small financial unblocks happen, opportunities arise out of nowhere, healthy relationships appear as if by coincidence. But don't be fooled, it isn't chance, it's manifestation. When lived in coherence, spiritual life becomes fertile ground for everyday miracles. And these miracles aren't only external, they reflect the inner wealth that begins to blossom. This is the success mindset so few understand. True prosperity isn't just accumulating goods, but aligning with your life purpose and living in an abundance of peace, harmony, and hope. Even so, we can't deny it. Society will keep demanding masks. There will be times when you'll need to wear one, like putting on a coat to face the cold. But the secret is not to confuse yourself with it. You can play roles without losing awareness of who you really are. That is spiritual self-knowledge in action. It's like an actor who, upon leaving the stage, knows how to separate the character from real life. Sadly, many people remain trapped in the character's life imposed on them, never realizing there is a self behind everything, waiting to be expressed. And here comes a fascinating point. The body, again, is the great ally on this journey. It not only detects incoherence, it also vibrates when we're in harmony. Anyone who has practiced deep meditation knows what it's like to feel spiritual energy moving through every cell, unblocking old emotions, bringing clarity and an expansion of consciousness. This state isn't unattainable, on the contrary, it's natural. What keeps us from it are precisely the masks we created to survive. When we shed those layers, even partially, we experience a state of enlightenment that doesn't depend on religion, but on connection with the universe. Perhaps you've felt this in simple moments, being in nature and suddenly feeling inner peace. A song that brings tears for no apparent reason, an authentic conversation that seems to heal old wounds. These instants are cracks in the veil of masks, signs that spiritual life pulses all the time, even when we try to silence it. It's in these instants we understand the power of spirituality applied to practical life. It isn't only in ancient books or elaborate rituals, but in the everyday, in choices and human connections. And if that's true, an inevitable question arises. If we all can experience moments of truth, why do we insist on returning to our masks? Why, even after feeling an expansion of consciousness, do we cling to old patterns? Maybe the answer lies in something few dare admit: the fear of freedom. Because being free implies responsibility for one's own life. It means accepting that we are not victims of fate, but co-creators of reality. The fear of freedom is one of humanity's greatest paradoxes. Many say they want prosperity, abundance, true love, and balance. But when life offers the chance to strip off the masks, the reaction is almost always resistance. That's because living without masks demands responsibility for your own spiritual energy, conscious choices, and the results of co-creation. You can no longer blame fate, society, or family. The expansion of consciousness brings a silent charge with it. If you already know, you can no longer pretend you don't. And that's the point where many retreat, preferring the illusory comfort of masks. This resistance shows up in many ways. How often does someone receive an incredible opportunity, a dream job, a healthy relationship, a chance at financial unblocking, and simply sabotage themselves? The mind makes excuses, the body gets sick, the spiritual energy contracts. It's not bad luck, it's the unconscious fear of aligning with one's true life purpose. It's as if there were a hidden belief that living in abundance is dangerous, that being too happy attracts envy, that manifesting prosperity is arrogance. These beliefs, inherited over generations, are invisible masks that keep us from accessing a success mindset. But here's the secret. Every limiting belief can be dissolved by the power of the mind allied with practical spirituality. A simple example is the practice of gratitude. Not that superficial gratitude of repeating stock phrases, but the kind that involves truly feeling in the body the blessing of being alive. When you give thanks for small things, a hot coffee in the morning, an unexpected smile, the simple fact of breathing, your spiritual energy expands, your chakras find balance, and the universe responds. It seems like magic, but it's simply the law of attraction working in sync with coherence between body, mind, and spirit. Now, think of how many times you've ignored your body's signals for the sake of appearances. How many times have you said yes when you wanted to say no? How many times have you smiled in public while crying inside? Each time that happens, incoherence creates cracks in your spiritual energy, making room for anxiety, insomnia, and that mental weight that seems inexplicable. The body shouts before the mind notices. It's as if it were saying, "Hey, you're betraying yourself." And the more we ignore these signals, the farther we drift from inner peace. That's why learning to listen to the body is one of the most powerful practices of spiritual self-knowledge. A practical technique is guided meditation focused on bodily listening. Close your eyes, take a deep breath, and mentally scan each part of your body, from head to toe. Observe where there's tension, cold, heat, vibration. These signals are messages. A tight stomach may indicate hidden fear. Heavy shoulders, responsibilities that aren't yours. A racing heart. An incoherence between what you feel and what you show. With this daily practice, in just a few minutes, you'll begin to notice patterns and to distinguish when you're acting from essence or from a mask. And here comes a counterintuitive point. Taking off the mask isn't always the best immediate path. Sometimes the wisest move is to wear it strategically, like using a shield in the middle of a battle. For example, in a hostile work environment, revealing your full vulnerability can be risky. In such cases, a mask of self-confidence can protect your energy until a chance for change arises. That's not falseness. It's a strategy of spiritual survival. The difference lies in keeping the awareness that the mask is temporary and not confusing it with your true identity. Interestingly, when you learn to handle masks this way, life starts to feel lighter. Instead of fighting them or getting lost inside them, you use them as tools. It's like mastering a language. At first it seems confusing, but with practice, you can move among different expressions without losing your essence. This skill is liberating because it allows you to manifest prosperity, build healthy relationships, and live in harmony without giving up your inner truth. And if all this seems complex, remember, even a child can grasp the simplicity of this journey. Have you noticed how small children express emotions without filters? They cry when they're sad, smile when they're happy, show anger without apologizing. Over time, we teach them that such behavior isn't appropriate, and that's how the cycle of masks begins. Spiritual awakening is simply the path back to that authenticity, now with the maturity and wisdom of someone who has already walked many roads. Which brings us to another essential reflection. If masks are inevitable in certain contexts, how do we maintain connection with the universe even when we need to wear them? Maintaining a connection with the universe even while wearing masks requires a constant practice of presence. Spiritual life isn't about abandoning all the roles we play. It's about cultivating awareness within them. It's possible to work in a demanding environment, care for a family, interact on social media, and still preserve your essence. The secret is not to fully identify with the masks. When you realize you are larger than any role you play, a quiet freedom is born, an inner peace that doesn't depend on circumstances. A practical way to keep this balance is to adopt reconnection rituals. They can be simple: a few minutes of guided meditation upon waking, an energetic cleansing bath with herbs at the end of the day, or writing in a spiritual journal about your perceptions and emotions. These practices serve as reminders that behind every mask, there is an untouchable inner wealth. And isn't it curious that by cultivating these moments, even the heaviest days seem lighter? That's because you're replenishing your spiritual energy, realigning your chakras, and creating harmony in your energetic field. Another powerful key is gratitude. Often, while wearing masks, we fall into the trap of believing we're living a total lie. But even in masks, there are lessons and hidden blessings. Being grateful for the protection they've given us is a step toward spiritual maturity. After all, through them, we face challenging situations without collapsing. Looking back with gratitude, we realize that even moments of incoherence were part of the path to enlightenment, shaping the success mindset that is now beginning to bloom. And here's a detail many ignore: the law of attraction isn't fooled. There is no point in wearing masks to try to manifest something. The universe responds to real energy, not stagecraft. If fear lives inside, even if outwardly you repeat prosperity affirmations, manifestation will be blocked. That's why so many get frustrated when applying co-creation techniques without results. Abundance flows only when the vibrational frequency aligns with the truth of the heart. That requires the courage to look within, even when you don't like what you find. Imagine someone who wants financial unblocking. They study strategies, work longer hours, recite positive affirmations, yet remain stuck in cycles of scarcity. What's going on? Often there's an unconscious belief planted in childhood that money is dirty, dangerous, or can only be earned through suffering. Until that mask is removed, prosperity won't manifest in fullness. The path is to reframe those beliefs, replacing them with a healthier connection to the energy of money. Reading books like Secrets of the Millionaire Mind or Think and Grow Rich can be a good start to this process, as they teach that outer wealth is simply a reflection of inner wealth. It's curious how the body also reacts when we begin to align with these truths. Insomnia gives way to deep sleep, anxiety dissolves into calmer breathing, and even inexplicable physical pains can disappear. This isn't a miracle in the mystical sense, but the natural result of a body no longer forced to carry the incoherence of masks. When there is harmony among mind, body, and spirit, energy flows without blockages, bringing vitality, mental clarity, and renewed hope. And if you look closely, life presents subtle tests to check whether you're truly living your truth. Situations arise to see whether you still react with the old mask or can already act with authenticity. It's as if the universe asked, "Did you really learn?" These moments may seem challenging, but they are actually opportunities for an expansion of consciousness. Each time you choose to act according to your essence, even when it's hard, you strengthen your spirituality and deepen your connection with your life purpose. However, there is something deeper on this journey, realizing that it's not only the people around us who wear masks. Often it's we who deceive ourselves, believing in stories we created to withstand reality. The ego builds narratives to protect us, but it also imprisons us. When you tell yourself, "I don't care," when you actually do, or "I don't need anyone," when deep down you long for love, you're wearing a mask in front of your own mirror. Recognizing this isn't weakness, it's courage. And that courage creates space for an even greater spiritual awakening. By accepting your vulnerabilities, you allow spiritual energy to flow freely. The universe doesn't demand perfection, it asks for authenticity. And it's this authenticity that creates the field for manifesting abundance, prosperity, and harmony. Enlightenment isn't becoming untouchable. It's becoming human in your purest form, connected to the universe and aware of the power of the mind. But this leads us to perhaps the most uncomfortable question of all. If we already know the truth sets us free and masks imprison us, why are we still so afraid to show who we really are? The fear of showing who we truly are is rooted in our story from childhood. Each of us at some point heard phrases that molded deep beliefs. "You're overreacting. Don't cry about that. Be strong. Boys don't cry. Girls don't behave like that." These little instructions, seemingly harmless, pile up until they become an invisible law that we can't be fully authentic if we want acceptance. The invisible error, as we've seen, is believing that sincerity equals rejection. Thus, we grow up believing we must adapt our essence to outside expectations, and the more masked we become, the farther we drift from prosperity, abundance, and true inner harmony. Curiously, despite all this conditioning, the body is never fooled. It remains the silent radar that perceives incoherence. A tight chest when we say something we don't believe. A clenched jaw when we smile without wanting to. A backache that appears without logical explanation. These signals are coded spiritual messages, reminders that we're not living in alignment. When ignored, they become anxiety, mental weight, and even physical illness. The body detects incoherence before the mind, and learning to listen is an act of spiritual self-knowledge and of faith. But there's a subtler layer. Often the fear of being ourselves isn't tied only to others' judgment, but to our own internal judgment. How often do we criticize ourselves even before someone else does? Ferocious self-criticism is like an inner executioner, always ready to point out flaws and belittle achievements. It creates a cycle of self-sabotage that blocks the flow of spiritual life. It's not rare to find people seeking enlightenment who can't prosper because they're trapped in the belief that they don't deserve it. Spirituality teaches that worthiness isn't something to be earned, it's an innate blessing in every human being. A practical example, think of someone who wants to manifest a healthy relationship. They might apply the law of attraction, write affirmations, visualize happy moments. But if deep down they believe no one will ever truly love me, manifestation doesn't happen. Spiritual energy doesn't respond to words, it responds to vibration. That's why so many people repeat cycles, toxic relationships, financial blocks, opportunities that slip through their fingers. True manifestation requires more than desire. It requires unblocking the beliefs that support the masks. So how do we unblock those beliefs? A powerful path is the practice of conscious co-creation. Instead of just wishing, the person begins to act as if they were already in harmony with the desired reality. That doesn't mean spending beyond their means or forcing situations, but cultivating a success mindset born from the balance between action and faith. For example, someone seeking financial unblocking can start with small acts of prosperity, donating a symbolic amount, investing in spiritual self-knowledge, organizing their finances with gratitude instead of fear. These gestures realign energy with abundance. Another essential aspect is understanding that enlightenment isn't a permanent state of perfection, but a continuous process of expanding consciousness. There will be days when masks return, and that's okay. The important thing is to notice when it happens and consciously choose to return to the path of authenticity. This process requires patience, compassion, and spiritual self-knowledge. Awakening doesn't occur in a single moment, but in many small epiphanies that together build a life of balance, inner peace, and connection with the universe. Here's something few admit. The mask is often comfortable. It provides a sense of safety, avoids conflict, creates the illusion of control. Taking it off can seem risky because it implies showing vulnerability, but it's precisely in vulnerability that strength is found. When you allow yourself to be seen as you are, you attract people and experiences that resonate with your essence. This brings not only material prosperity, but an abundance of love, harmony, and hope that no mask could ever provide. Spirituality applied to practical life shows we don't need to choose between masks and authenticity in a radical way. We can use masks when necessary, but always with the awareness that they are tools, not identities. The problem arises when we forget who we really are and start believing in the character. That's why cultivating moments of silence, guided meditation, and connection with the universe is essential. In these moments, the inner voice grows stronger, reminding us that we are more than the roles we play. And if we look deeply, we might realize the greatest mask isn't the one we show the world, but the one we show ourselves. That's the mask that keeps us from recognizing our life purpose, that distances us from abundance, that blocks the flow of spiritual energy. And then an inevitable question emerges. How do we remove that mask without fear to finally awaken to the truth of our essence? The mask we show ourselves is without a doubt the hardest to remove. It's invisible because it blends with our beliefs, habits, and even the inner voice we assume is our truth. Yet that voice is often an echo of old traumas, family conditioning, social expectations. It's the mask that says, "You're not capable. That's not for you. Don't try, you'll fail." It disguises itself as prudence, but in reality, it's fear. It keeps thousands of people paralyzed, preventing spiritual awakening and blocking the manifestation of abundance in their lives. A common example is our relationship with money. How many times did we hear from an early age phrases like, "Money doesn't bring happiness. You have to grind hard to get anything. Wealth is a privilege for a few." These sentences take root as absolute truths, and a person grows up believing prosperity is nearly impossible. That belief becomes a mask that prevents them from perceiving blessings already available and blocks the flow of the law of attraction. Even when a chance for financial unblocking appears, fear speaks louder. The result? Stagnation. And this doesn't apply only to finances. Think of relationships. Someone wearing the mask of rejection can spend an entire life sabotaging genuine connections because they believe they're not worthy of love. They might attract relationships, but they will always find incoherence because the spiritual energy they emit is distrust. The body senses it, the heart races, the stomach clenches, and even if the mind tries to justify, intuition screams. That proves the body detects incoherence before the mind. The manifestation of true love only becomes possible when that mask is removed with courage. But how do you remove a mask that seems glued to your skin? The key lies in expanding consciousness. And that expansion doesn't happen all at once, but in layers. Every practice of spiritual self-knowledge, guided meditation, journaling, analyzing recurring patterns, removes a fragment of that mask. It's like wiping fog from a mirror. With each wipe, the view gets clearer. Enlightenment occurs when we finally see ourselves without distortion, accepting not only virtues, but also shadows. And here's something counterintuitive. The mask isn't always an enemy. At certain points in the journey, it protects us from truths we're not yet ready to face. Imagine someone carrying deep pain who must still work, care for family, keep going. Being completely vulnerable could be unbearable. In that case, the mask acts as temporary armor until there's enough strength to deal with the pain. The problem arises when someone forgets the mask is temporary and starts believing it's their identity. Spirituality teaches that true courage isn't tearing off every mask at once, but having discernment to know when to use them and when to set them aside. That's balance. That's harmony. Life purpose doesn't demand perfection. It asks for authenticity. And authenticity is built gradually with each choice we make. Choosing to tell the truth when lying would be easier. Choosing to take a stand when silence seems more comfortable. Choosing to love even at the risk of being hurt. These small choices, repeated daily, build the success mindset that supports the manifestation of a prosperous, abundant life. Interestingly, as we remove these inner masks, we discover that life isn't as threatening as we imagined. The people who truly matter accept us, not for the perfect image we try to project, but for the vulnerability we share. And those who walk away when we reveal our essence were connected to the mask, not to our real self. This realization is freeing. It brings indescribable inner peace and opens space for unexpected blessings, because we finally align with the spiritual energy of truth. However, there's something deeper still. Removing inner masks leads us to question the very nature of reality. If so many of our beliefs were merely disguises, how many others are still hidden? What else do we believe is true, but is actually a collective construction, a social contract accepted without reflection? That question is unsettling, but it's the start of a new expansion of consciousness. Because when we begin to doubt the world's masks, we make room to understand even greater mysteries of spirituality and existence. And at this point, the next challenge arises, learning to live in a world of masks without losing our connection to the universe. How do we maintain balance and harmony when we're surrounded by disguises, illusions, and incoherence? Living in a world of masks is like walking through a grand theater where each person plays a carefully rehearsed role. Some characters believe in their roles so deeply they forget who they truly are. Others use masks as tools of manipulation, seeking power, approval, or advantage. The question is, how do you keep balance and harmony amid so many illusions without getting lost in the game? The answer lies in connection with the universe and in cultivating spirituality in everyday life. First, you must understand you don't control others' masks. They exist. They were built on their journeys. It's not your job to rip them off. What you can and must do is strengthen your own spiritual energy so others' masks have no power over your inner peace. That means practicing conscious observation. When someone acts incoherently, instead of getting irritated, ask yourself, am I seeing this person's essence or just another mask? That simple question dissolves much frustration. You begin to see beyond the surface, recognizing many actions don't come from the soul, but from the disguise that person's mind sustains. A powerful practice to stay steady in this scenario is guided meditation for energetic protection. Visualize yourself surrounded by a sphere of light, feeling that no external mask can penetrate your essence. This exercise strengthens not only the chakras, but also inner confidence. You become less vulnerable to manipulation and incoherence, and more connected to your life purpose. And here's the detail. When you vibrate at this frequency of clarity, external masks become irrelevant. People may try to manipulate, deceive, or hide, but your intuition, guided by an expanded consciousness, will always give you signs. Another key is to cultivate gratitude even for difficult experiences. Often it's precisely by dealing with others' masks that we develop wisdom. A disappointment can reveal your own strength. A betrayal can show you deserve more authentic connections. Rejection can open the way to more aligned relationships. Spiritual life teaches that every situation is an opportunity for manifestation. Even external incoherences can turn into blessings when faced with faith and gratitude. But there's also a counterintuitive point. Not every external mask is harmful. Sometimes they act as mirrors, showing something we haven't seen in ourselves. Think of someone who always seems fake and manipulative. Instead of simply rejecting that presence, ask yourself, what is this mask trying to teach me? It might reveal an internal pattern, your own belief or mask behavior you hadn't noticed. In this way, even others' disguises become mirrors of spiritual self-knowledge. And what about broader social masks, the ones that mold entire communities? From a young age, society teaches us that success equals status, prosperity is only material, and spirituality is restricted to rigid dogmas. These are collective masks, maintained by invisible contracts. Spiritual awakening happens when you start questioning these narratives. It's when you realize true abundance isn't about having more, but about being more. It's when you understand that enlightenment doesn't require renouncing the world, but living in it with awareness, in balance between spirituality and practical life. In that process, the law of attraction works even more clearly. The universe doesn't respond to collective masks. It responds to each individual's vibration. When you choose to manifest authenticity amid a sea of incoherence, you create a magnetic field that attracts aligned people, opportunities, and experiences. That's why so often, when you free yourself from social patterns, life seems to reorganize around you. Financial unblocking arrives, toxic relationships dissolve, prosperity flows. It's not luck, it's manifestation. And perhaps here lies the deepest point. Living in a world of masks doesn't mean isolating yourself or fighting it, but learning to navigate with wisdom. It's like surfing choppy waves. You don't control the sea, but you can choose how to balance on the board. This is the art of spiritual life amid chaos, finding inner peace even in the face of external incoherence, living in harmony even when the world seems disguised. But this reflection opens an even more provocative question. If we can handle external masks, are we ready to face the greatest mask of all, the one that involves not only individuals, but the very structure of the reality we believe we live in? And so, after this journey, tell me, how many masks have you identified in yourself today? How many times has your body tried to warn you about incoherence, but you silenced it? The dark truth is that they aren't who they seem to be. But let's be honest, many times neither are we. And maybe this is the call you've been waiting for, to stop running from your own essence and begin living with more authenticity, more balance, and more connection with the universe. If you apply even a small part of what I've shared here, be it a guided meditation, a gratitude exercise, or simply listening more to your body, you'll notice subtle yet powerful changes. Financial unblocking may happen where you least expect it. Relationships may gain more harmony, and even inner peace can become a habit. But none of this works if you only listen and don't act. Spiritual life isn't theory, it's daily practice. And I want to challenge you. What's the first mask you'll allow yourself to remove? Which belief are you willing to question today? Share it in the comments. Your story might inspire others on the same journey. And of course, if you want to keep receiving messages like this, ones that expand consciousness and reveal paths to prosperity, abundance, and spiritual awakening, subscribe to the channel now and turn on notifications. This is only the beginning of your transformation.